Okay, Chapter 15, Lecture 1, Society and Economy under the Old Regime in the 18th Century. This will show us how society is set up. Here you have a picture of mother doing domestic chores around the house. In this case, she's churning butter. You can see this person's washing clothes, this one's got the broom. It's kind of a picture showing domesticity. The old regime, this is how society was set up. The patterns of social, political, and economic relationships in France before 1789 broadly the life and institutions of pre-revolutionary Europe. This is important to remember because it'll come back in chapter 18. The hierarchical society is characterized, this is just the layers of society, is what hierarchical means. At the top were the elites with an inherited legal privileges, the church, closely associated with the state and aristocracy, the urban labor force, usually organized into guilds. Guilds are specialized artisans or people that make things at a high level. And then you have the rest, the rural peasantry, subject to high taxes and feudal dues. Tradition, hierarchy, and privilege incorporate feeling. Little concept of individual rights, only group rights. So group rights by society. And most of those rights are for the aristocracy. The aristocracy makes up 1 to 5% of the population. Most social, political, and economic power and wealth is based on land, which they control a majority of. Manual labor is considered beneath them, any kind of manual labor. Interest in economic growth, innovation, like commercial classes. Here's a picture of the aristocracy. You can see right here he has his gun. Then he has his hunting dog. And as we have domesticated dogs the way we, for pets, they had dogs that were specifically for hunting. Here's his wife. And we're moving on to the next slide. So the aristocracy, British nobility, was the smallest, wealthiest, best defined, most socially responsible. About 400 family, eldest males of each in the House of Lords own about 1/4 of all arable land. Arable land is the land that you can grow things on. Few significant legal privileges, but great political power. The French nobility is less clear-cut. It's about 400,000 nobles. Nobles of the sword, we've heard this one before, is nobility derived from military service, and nobility of the robe from service in bureaucracy or purchased. Some wealthy, some poor, but all shared in certain hereditary privileges. Eastern European nobilities, military traditions import an extensive repressive power over serfs. Serfs, another word for that is peasants. The aristocratic resurgence is Europe-wide reaction to the threat from expanding power of monarchies. Tried to preserve privileges by making nobility harder to attain, pushed to reserve high ranking, military, government, church appointments for nobles, sought to leverage existing noble-controlled institutions. British Parliament, French parliaments, German provincial diets tried to shore up wealth through new tax exemptions, raising rents. So the aristocracy is making an upswing in power. Peasants and serfs, lives of economic and social dependency, exploitation, and vulnerability. So what this means is they were at the lowest end and had the least amount of power. Power of European landlords increased from west to east. French peasants, banalities, these are feudal dues. Corvée, annual forced labor. That means you had to give up your labor for the use of the land. The Habsburg serfs were near slavery. Robot, compulsory service to the lord. Russian serfs were the worst off. Noble wealth measured by number of serfs, not acres. Ottoman Empire, peasants nominally free, marginally empowered by scarcity of labor. And there's a picture of it. This is what a manor would look like. You can see all the people working, and all the serfs are working down here, and as you trail up, you get to the manor house. Peasant rebellions. This is one of the standards of revolts. Russia, Pugachev's rebellion, all of southern Russia eventually crushed. It was the largest 18th century uprising. Eastern Europe, smaller revolts in Bohemia, Transylvania, Moravia, Austria. Western Europe, almost no revolts, but rural riots in England, usually attempts to assert traditional rights against innovations, thus conservative. There's a picture of Pugachev. English game laws. This is important. From 1671 to 1831, English landowners had exclusive legal right to hunt game, which means that they were the only ones that could get meat of wild animals. It upheld superior rights of the aristocracy over peasants and landed gentry over commercial classes. Gentry hired gamekeepers to guard against poachers. A poacher is probably a peasant that is trying to look for a quail or some kind of game. Killing deer or unauthorized persons became a capital crime, so you could be executed for getting caught hunting. Poaching, nonetheless, was popular, a source of food for the hungry. Black market driven by urban demand for luxury meat. In 1831, the laws were rewritten to permit landowners to allow others to hunt, so they were allowed to charge people to come on their land. And one of the privileges is having people to your hunting lodge so they could spend time at your house and go hunting on your lands. The family structure was a basic unit of production and consumption in pre-industrial Europe. The Northwestern Europe households, nuclear family, married couple, children through early teens, servants, approximately 5 to 6 members average, married late, average age was 26 for men and 23 for women. Servants were young people working in exchange for room and board, wages not necessarily socially inferior to employers, normally ate with the family. In Eastern European households, marriage usually before 20, often arranged. The extended family, 3 to 4 generations, 9 to 20 members or more in rural Russia, and aided by landlords' need for labor. Family economy. Living alone was almost impossible and viewed with suspicion. All household members worked. Work products went to the family, not the individual. Farming was a major occupation, but rarely adequate. One or more family members might work elsewhere or send wages home. Skilled artisans. Father was the chief artisan. Wife often sold the wares. Children learned the trade. In Western Europe, the death of the father often meant disaster. High mortality rate meant high personal and economic vulnerability. So they were very dependent on the father and learning from the father. And this is a picture of your average household. And we will stop there.